what happens if you combine a sprawling city that already has pretty bad traffic with the bridges and porch patch that's already infamous for traffic chaos? Well, I think I might just know the answer to that question.
I'm in danger!
Yeah, so this is gonna be a challenge. Let's get to it. Traffic was bad here in East Haven as it is, so if this new patch massively increases traffic, vehicle and pedestrian, we might be in for a serious ride. Yeah, pun intended. The game is currently paused exactly where I last saved, which was back in September. And we already have a bit of a suburban traffic jam here in the arterial moving through the suburb of Chester. Let's just have a quick look around to see how bad things were when we kind of left the city. Yeah, so the constant traffic alongside the Archer Bridge and the Massachusetts Route 28 is no surprise to those of you that follow along here in East Haven. This is as constant as death in Texas, basically, which is of course what prompted the most recent city council vote, which was a proposal to build a complex combined tunnel and bridge segment directly connecting the cities of West Point and Fort John. And you guys and gals voted overwhelmingly in favor of that proposal. More traffic jams. Anyways, one of the complexities of this bridge project was that the bridge needed to be of a certain height, and then it had to drop its elevation sharply because we're going to dig the tunnel underneath the historic Battery Hill district. Yeah, I know it wasn't without controversy, but you guys wanted it, so you're getting it. Anyways, the necessity for a certain bridge height is because the Fort John Cruise Terminal caters to the American Cruise Lines Company, and their Grand New England cruises actually navigate this shallow seaway. And there's at least one cargo ship route here as well. So being able to actually utilize some of the new drawbridges is going to really come in handy. And of course the new small-scale ferry options almost feels like a feature directly developed for a place like East Haven County. Yeah, get some conspiracy theories going out there. But that is a lot of talk with very little action. So we're gonna hit play, speed up the simulation and see where things settle, because whenever a major patch hit, I don't want to rush into doing anything because there's usually like a startup period where things are just shuffled around. We already see the massive population drop that the patch notes also mentioned. This should stabilize a little later. Oh, and we're also seeing all the new noise pollution notifications, as this is a part of the simulation that has been made a little more difficult. Which I welcome, because we can always just ignore them. Anyways, I'll get back to you when things have settled, and then we can kind of have a look at the overall situation. Fingers crossed that the city survives. Oh, we're having a terrible crash on the bridge connecting Chowder Bay with West Point. One of the cars is on fire on the train tracks and actively blocking all passenger and cargo traffic between the cities. Another very unfortunate traffic accident by this massive interchange known to locals as the Beast. But otherwise, it's got a decent flow to it considering just how much traffic is actually moving through this area. On a more general note, we're now starting to look into a looming healthcare crisis, as emergency services have a harder time to reach their destination. And the downtown Mercy connector is completely out of whack. Yeah, we've got our work cut out for us in this one. But there is something incredibly morbid about a bunch of ambulance notifications being slowly replaced by a bunch of hearse notifications. I'm sure those two things are completely unrelated. If you're stressing out about all this, don't worry. we will rebuild. Alright, so it is now early April, which means that it's been about 3 months of in-game time, which is quite a bit, and I think the city has settled into its natural state now, which isn't great. The population has rebounded. In fact, it's the highest it's ever been, and we've made a ton of money, so we have a pretty healthy cash reserve. But we're gonna need some of that money as well, because the service coverage is looking a little grim, and that is probably caused by the terrible traffic and queues just about everywhere. Healthcare isn't actually terrible. You will notice that most of these notifications are a lack of hearses. Something that's a little more critical is that we have a fresh crime wave throughout the entire county. It's looking very grim. It's probably due to the police cruisers not being able to actually cover their assigned districts due to all the traffic. So we're going to carefully pause the game and jump straight into building the combined tunnel and bridge solution, as that will hopefully help alleviate some of the massive traffic across the Archer Bridge. We're going to start by developing the really tricky bit, which is going to be the tunnel moving underneath the lower section of Battery Hill. So importantly, we're not digging directly underneath all of these historic row houses, even though it's not going to produce all that much noise. We are trying to kind of avoid some of them at least. More importantly though, we need this tunnel to connect directly to the heart of downtown for a proper connection. And I think Barlow Street is the obvious choice, which is going to require a bit of imminent domaining, because we've got a really cozy section of row houses here alongside Ivy Lane that simply has to go. Well, wait a minute, at least all of these ones have to go. And then we'll get rid of Ivy Lane itself, and hopefully, as I zoom out and pan the camera, we can kind of imagine how we can dig underneath the arterial, the main avenue cutting through this area, and thus move beneath Battery Hill. So this would be Cypress Street. We're grabbing the 2-lane two-way highway, hoping that's enough capacity. Otherwise, we can hopefully expand it. And the good thing here is that as we're just trying to follow the terrain, we have an 8+% incline. So hopefully we'll be able to dig underneath this. I think it requires 12.5 meters for the actual tunnel to generate. So let's just have a look and see how this works out. A 12% decline, I think we can manage that. And then we need to get out of the hillside somewhere around here. So yeah, let's just give this a go, shall we? Complex curve, so that we can try and steer clear of Battery Hill as much as possible. And then we'll click once and we'll click once more. And now we have to zoom out to kind of see where it's going to intercept with the bridge, which is going to have a new intersection around this part. So something like this. All right, let's give that a go. Then I'm pretty confident that we can use Move It to just elevate some of these nodes quite a bit actually, because it doesn't need all that much headroom to actually generate the tunnel. So something like this, which obviously makes this segment much less steep. Okay, so this kind of works. Let's move on to the other side here and have a look. This actually looks, it's gonna be a pretty dramatic view you have when you drive this bridge ready to enter the tunnel with the imposing old row houses and the skyline in the background. Anyways, let's grab this node and see if we can do the same slight elevation trick. We can actually elevate it quite a bit, as well as one of the nodes in here, I think. Oh, it is going to be a lot of fun seeing this thing in action. We may even be able to create a bit of an intersection here, so that you don't necessarily have to move directly into Fort John, or the downtown core at least. That might be a good solution, but we'll see. I think for now we just need to get the bridge in place. Now, I've really been looking forward to trying out some of the many new bridges, so I think we're just gonna filter for everything within the DLC. And we've got lots of new options, but we can pretty much tell from the the logo here, which of these are drawbridges. So it looks like we have a 2-lane version, a 4-lane version, a 6-lane version, and a 4-lane highway double train track double decked lift bridge. Ooh, that's a mouthful. I think the 4-lane drawbridge is where we're going to start. So let's move in here. It defaults to 20 meters, which does seem to be a little higher than the current elevation of this node sticking out of the, well, cliffside here. But let's just see if we can kind of draw this across, and then we can always adjust accordingly. So if I snap to it and just move across, oh, that looks cool. Look how it automatically spawns the draw segment. That's really cool. Anyways, let's just get this added. We'll get another segment in place on the landing here, and then probably just switch to the regular 4-lane highway here, which is pretty much perfectly intersecting with the current road without almost any elevation changes. So this should look super smooth, and it certainly does. I'm a little worried about the connection over here. It does seem like it's going to elevate quite a bit, but we'll just check. 6.7, so that's not too bad. And I guess if we keep this configuration, we can branch out with the on and on ramps from this node. I think I'm actually just going to quickly shuffle this segment around so that it intersects around here, because there's really no reason for it to be a really complex thingy here where we've got a ton of high density housing as well. So let's just move that a little bit. Alright, so with this new connection in place, we need to move on to try and alleviate this mess. I've got a couple of quick ideas. I don't know just how effective it's going to be, but I mean, this is just a complete mess. We need like direct access from this bridge onto this highway, and easier, like we need more throughput right here. So that is probably just going to be a massive roundabout. Let's get rid of this segment, and I'm going to see if I can create an additional off-ramp here that connects directly down here. Then we're going to squeeze in a medium roundabout, which probably requires me to redraw a few of these roads as it's looking mighty wonky. I think this might improve some of the flow right here, but I think the main issue is that lots of these cars and trucks are actually trying to enter directly into downtown West Point. At least that's what this queue is telling me, so I just kind of need to like reshuffle a bunch of this and make the connection from this bridge segment to the road leading directly to downtown much more seamless. Right, that was quite a bit of very theoretical traffic fixing with the game paused. Because even if this does solve this mess, then the issue is probably just pushed to a new area. There's only one way to find out, and that is to speed through the time a bit. I mean, it actually kind of worked. Probably moved the issue somewhere else, as I mentioned. There is one big elephant in the room with us though. It's all about trains, because something is mighty wrong with all these freight trains being completely stuck trying to enter. What is even going on? Whoa! Oh man, that is a busy segment. So I guess the issue is that this train might not be able to actually leave the station and move on to this segment because this train is parked right here. Does that make sense? I don't quite get that. Like, why isn't this train currently stuck at the West Point station able to just kind of back out and utilize this track? There is plenty of clearance here. No? Alright, so after 10 minutes of pretty frustrating troubleshooting, what finally worked was to grab the exact same base game two-way train track and just upgrade this segment. I've only upgraded this segment, but if I use the bigger tool to select this segment, it's the exact same. So yeah, something was completely out of whack here, but it now seems to be working and the trains can make the passage here as before. Oh well. And as we're moving back to this mess, it honestly seems to work. There's a much better throughput now, and we're seeing plenty of active use of the new bridge as well. So, yeah. You recall I mentioned, traffic moving to another area to cause issues? Well, it's now downtown. But as we are watching this beautiful thing in motion, we have a much bigger fish to fry than a bit of extra downtown traffic. Because while it may increase the pressure point in here, it is alleviating the Archer Bridge ever so slightly, although it's still looking pretty bad. I think I'm starting to realize that this is going to be a monumental city-wide effort. And there's one thing in particular that makes me feel pretty stupid. Because there's something I should have done before I even hit play in this new patch. And it takes place all the way out here. Some of you might remember my Black Magic developer mode stuff. We have traffic spawners out here adding useless dummy traffic, which I guess we don't need anymore. I added this initially because we had too little traffic, I felt, throughout East Haven County. We probably had a substantial amount, but I like a lot of traffic for things to really feel real, and I don't have any real performance issues in the city yet. But yeah, we're gonna get rid of this. I feel... I wonder how many thousands of additional vehicles this has spawned during the 3-month speeding up time. Oh well, it's fixed now. And then there's something else that we need to invest massively in before we make any more changes to the actual road layout. Something that can hopefully reduce the amount of personal vehicles on the roads. Can you guess it?
Say the line, Bart!
Public transportation. Yeah, I probably should have invested in that upfront as well before hitting play. Could have saved us a bit of trouble, but we're getting to it now, and we're going to invest and reshuffle some resources within all existing modes of public transit here in East Haven. So that is our intercity commuter train network, the downtown tram line in Fort John, as well as the bus network. So the very first thing we're going to do is open the budget tab and just allocate a ton of additional funds to transportation. This is going to increase efficiency of many of the depots, allowing to spawn more vehicles. Then we're going to upgrade some of our existing bus depots. The main depot is located in the Low Plain district, which is completely gridlocked as well. Well, I guess technically traffic is moving, but we can't really expand this any further because it is squeezed in between high-density development and heavy infrastructure. We do have a secondary bus depot though, which is the Chowder Bay bus depot, and this one is ripe for an upgrade, so let's just get this added as early on as possible. And the combination of ramping up our budget as well as adding this additional depot expansion seems to have added around 17 or 18 additional vehicles to be spawned from this depot. And within Fort John, it added an additional 6 or 7. So this is the budget increase solely doing its work here. So with this in mind, let's bring up the public transportation HUD so that we can get an overview of the current 5 lines. This isn't a lot, but they have quite a few stops, and they do connect like the most densely populated and dense workplace areas throughout the county. So some of them are pretty efficient and some of them are useless. So the first thing I'm seeing here is that the Chowder Bay Cape Rose X3 line is at maximum capacity and needs a bit of additional love. So we're going to start right here. Now ticket price is 8. I'm going all in now, so we're going to reduce that to 4 and then increase the amount of assigned vehicles to, I guess, at least 14. That is going to use up some of the spare capacity we just added, but this is definitely the line that needs it the most. Let's see the amount of passengers here. So this one's just been picked up. This one has 510 people waiting. 92, 177, 438. So hopefully this is going to add quite a bit of relief. We currently have 524 passengers. I'm expecting this to increase. We'll also be adding some extra capacity to bus line 4. Oh, that's embarrassing. And I'm pretty sure you've already suggested some naming for this. Oh well. So we're seeing a ton of passengers here and some very high capacity stations, and most of the buses are completely full. So in this case, we are also going to lower the price, cutting the ticket price in half basically, and increase the amount of vehicles to 12 this time around, because the line usage isn't currently maximized, but the price drop might increase it. So 377 current users. It's going to be interesting to see where this ends up. To finalize our changes here, I'm also going to remove some buses from these underutilized lines while also cutting the price in half. Don't want to reduce the amount of buses too much because I really don't know what impact in demand it's going to have when we have the current price, but I'm probably gonna remove like 4 or 3 buses from each of these. And I know it might seem a little counterintuitive to remove the capacity of some of these lines, but my logic of thinking here, which may be wrong, we'll see in the future, is that when line usage is this low, many of the buses are going to be almost empty, and they're actually just going to clutter up our existing traffic because the buses are pretty sizable vehicles. They're about 4 or 5 car lengths, so if we can get some of the empty ones off the roads, that is also going to help alleviate traffic. Next up is going to be a host of changes to the existing intercity train network. Now, if I recall, we have 2 rail yards. We have the West Point rail yard, which has already received both upgrades and is at capacity. Something to keep in mind. And then we should have a small depot, yes, out here in the Oceanside district of Merseyside, which is also at capacity. So we can't add any, actually we can add upgrades here, which is super cool. It's part of Tygon's rail yard pack or just rail infrastructure pack, which you should get if you enjoy trains. But we're actually gonna do something else before, just to relieve some of the current capacity levels, because I am pretty sure we have some cargo stuff seeing basically no use. So moving into the cargo tab, some of these lines see, you know, pretty much no use at all. And that's okay. We did add them at random just to get more freight train activity because it looks awesome. So it doesn't surprise me that some of the lines I set up basically doesn't do anything. So I think anything below, like, yeah, we'll remove this one, we'll remove this one, potentially Route 5 as well. Let's start, yeah, let's remove all 3. For the passenger rail lines, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to reduce the ticket price to $4 across the board, once again cutting all tickets in half, and then we are going to remove one train, one of the two trains currently serving the Fort John Chowder Bay line, because that is heavily underutilized. And then we're pretty much just going to add all the freed up new capacity to the most heavily trafficked lines. So that is specifically Chowder Bay West Point. It is the MBTA East Haven line. This is the one that goes all the way up to Boston. It could definitely use a few additional trains, and then see if we can squeeze in one additional train for the Fort John West Point line. We should also consider the types of trains we're utilizing for these lines. Now, this is the Chowder Bay West Point line, which is almost at capacity. Both of the trains are nearly full, and we've just cut the ticket price in half, so we're expecting this to rise. And my initial plan was to just add one additional vehicle of the same type, which is a 3-segment EU-themed passenger train with 240 capacity. But if we instead were to switch this to the 4-segment version, then not only would each train have an additional capacity of 120, which would be 240 extra capacity without adding the third train. Adding the third train in would obviously increase that to like more than 500 by getting an additional 360. So we're going to try and do this. I am pretty certain both stations will be able to handle trains of this size. So I'm just going to deselect the other train, just like this, so that we're only utilizing this, and then we're going to assign an additional vehicle. So even though it's only one additional vehicle, it is going to be a very noticeable bump in total capacity. And we've got a freshly spawned 4-segment train rolling up to the West Point station now, so we're just going to see if it fits. That is an easy fit. We could even go for a much larger train, but this is a decent start. So we're gonna get back to all of these train lines, all of these public transit lines, to see what has worked and what hasn't. But I think all of these changes, I mean, they should get some cars off the road, right? My fellow American citizens of East Haven. Not fellow, I'm not American, but come on, get into some public transit, please. The MBTA East Haven line is already utilizing a pretty beefy train stock. So in this case, I think we're just gonna ramp up the assigned vehicles with 2 additional ones. Also, the ticket price is free because apparently it's always been free, which kind of explains the line usage. But what this means is that I'm not expecting like a sizable hop in the amount of passengers here, so I'm just kind of future-proofing with additional capacity. So apparently there was also a train bug affecting the Fort John Mersey line. It utilizes these diesel cars because it's using some freight tracks by the port, which aren't electrified. And the issue was that both trains would actually despawn by this station when they tried to pass each other here. And the fix was to add a waypoint so that the tracks are completely separated, or there's like a bit of extra breathing room. I don't know. These trains are kind of temperamental, you know, they kind of act up a little bit. Anyways, this did see the line usage shoot up from 0 to 114. So I am going to add additional trains here, but I am kind of tempted to just follow this train as it enters downtown Fort John, the main public transit hub, just to ensure that we don't run into new issues, because I think these guys have been despawning for, I don't know, years of in-game time. Because I'm an idiot who don't follow up on the stuff I create. Either way, let's follow this fella moving into the station and see if it acts up. Now, some of you may recall we've just done a revamp of all the tracks here because this public transit hub gets super busy. So I'm curious to see if this will cause a new issue entirely. I mean, so far so good, but it didn't exactly enter at a high traffic point of time. And I don't know what the impact of all these new additional trains is going to be on Fort John Central. So I should probably follow up on that and actually monitor it this time around. Now this fella's waiting because there is a single track segment right here, so it has to kind of wait for its sibling. It's a partner in crime moving underneath the highway. And there you go, it's clear now. And just to follow a train a bit more, because it's always fun, and just to get an additional bit of verification, let's just see how this pans out. It almost looks synchronized to the same pattern that the other train did, so I think things are just looking great. Yeah, it's able to leave without any drama. Awesome. Of course, our tram network deserves a bit of love too. Now, most of you will probably know that it's not as much a network as it's only a single line named the Bay Road Historic Connector, and I'm just going to outline the full line for you guys right here. So it's basically one of the many old, now defunct streetcar lines that crisscrossed across much of this island that have since been revived, mainly as a tourist attraction to be able to carry tourists around for free, alongside some of the major attractions here in Johns Bay and the Back Bay neighborhood. But in recent times, it's actually picked up quite a bit and is seeing a lot of usage. There's a couple of steps we can take here to future-proof and in the future expand this line as well, but we're a little limited by our current options. Due to this not being a full citywide or county-wide engagement to actually provide a proper tram network throughout East Haven County, there's a very small old tram depot down here by the old harbor that was rebuilt for the task. The issue, of course, is that the capacity is 2 vehicles, so it can only supply 2 trams. Now, we do have the option to add additional double tracks, which is, of course, going to double the capacity. So we're just gonna make sure we get those added in, and then we can also switch up the tram type for extra capacity. So it's much the same strategy we've done with some of the smaller train lines. So with Anarchy enabled, I am just going to get this placed right next to the existing tracks, maybe just offset it a little bit like this. And then we're going to make sure we get a connection in place, of course. Now, it's very tempting to just upgrade to one of the maximum capacity options we have here, but we need to just inspect the line once more to make sure that all the stations can actually accommodate larger streetcars, because it is pretty tightly built within the immensely dense downtown area. This is such a nice view. Ooh. Anyways, this station seems to be able to handle pretty much anything, so let's just move on. We follow the tracks. They separate here by the park, by Old Harbor, and this one is definitely a bit more of a squeeze. I think 3 segments at the very maximum is what the Ivy Street station can accommodate, which is a bit of a shame because it's definitely the most busy station, or one of the more busy stations. Anyways, moving on, we have some pretty tight segments here to worry about as well. Then we have a fully dedicated grass track. This station here should be able to handle just about everything. And we're just gonna move through. By this point, we already know that three segments of the tram is like the maximum. That is the case here for Ivy Street as well, I think. Otherwise, it's going to mess up this intersection. And just look how busy this place is. Oof, it is a lot of fun working with all this, I must say. This station here, which is by Queen's Passage, of course. This is the super hip district of... Yeah, this is Ivy Park, but this is actually Back Bay. This is the really hip part. You even have murals and graffiti, oh yeah. Anyways, this can certainly... Oh, this can probably only accommodate 3-segment trams as well. And I think that, yeah, that is definitely the case for the rest of them as well. Now, we could probably do some infrastructure changes to accommodate larger actual vehicles, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. We are within capacity currently, so this is mainly just to future-proof things and see if we can get an even higher line usage. So we're going to add, it's already added 1 additional vehicle just by adding the extra double tracks. So given current usage, I'm actually tempted to just let the 2 segments 160 capacity be the current vehicle still in use. I think that's more than enough, and the traffic gets so tight that there's once again this consideration of having trams that aren't like too long and take up too much space, because much of the tracks is, as you guys could probably tell, shared with other types of traffic. I am tempted, however, to try a different color scheme. I'm not a massive fan of this screaming pink or purple. It's one of the two, so we'll just get that done instead. No, this is the actual line, right? But it also recolors the actual trains. Cool. I think this looks really good. But since we are keeping the small tram versions, let's just try and bump the assigned vehicles to 4. And hopefully that is going to future-proof things. Alright, so it is probably going to take a while before we can see any effects of our public transit changes. And since public transit isn't super elaborate here in East Haven County, the effects might even be hard to spot. So what I think we're gonna do next is we're going to fly the full extent of Massachusetts Route 28 as it cuts through the county. And then we'll see if we can identify some main bottlenecks that we can then work on fixing. So we're starting way out here in Cape Rose as we're approaching rush hour. It's just past 7:30, so things are going to get pretty bad from here on out. Although this stretch of Route 28 is pretty clear, it's looking pretty good. But okay, the density out here is very low, although we are starting to see the effects of rapid suburbanization. It hasn't really picked up just yet, and much of it is just farmlands and agricultural stuff. Let's just follow Route 28 as we're moving south. Pretty proud of this setup here, where the trains snake their way underneath the bridge. That is a cool feature, I say so myself. And the first issue is a traffic accident with a car that is burned down and a police cruiser that has then decided to completely block the bridge. Yeah, okay. But this is not a daily occurrence, so I think given the current amount of queues here, we can assume that this ain't a regular thing. Moving to the Chowder Bay downtown connector, things are looking pretty good. This mess here usually gets pretty busy on this off-ramp here, as this main roundabout is handling thousands of vehicles each day, but currently it's not too bad. Downtown Chowder Bay, seeing a bit of a traffic jam, but I mean, it's not a small city, so that's to be expected, I think. Now let's continue, because things are only going to get more chaotic from here on. Yeah, so we're starting to see a bit of a gridlock here, I guess, by this interchange, trying to weave traffic to and from West Point onto Route 28. Yeah, we're gonna have to look at this, that's for sure. Let's just casually move on. Traffic is really picking up now, trying to enter the city of Fort John. No surprise, it is by quite the margin the densest city of East Haven County, and oh, it's looking pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, come on. We might need to make this like a custom roundabout, or maybe have a traffic signal even. Something to clear this up. But let's get the full picture and move on. Lots of queue in this direction as well. Traffic trying to move east and north to Chowder Bay and beyond. Not great. Ton of traffic here as well, trying to enter the downtown areas of Fort John. But it is just so dense. It's hard to make sure that there is like a continuous flow here during the worst time of rush hour, but we can definitely make it better. As we move on, this is where things get like really bad. The amount of traffic trying to enter the western parts of the county is pretty terrible. Trying to cross the 4-lane bridge here, 4 lanes. That is something I think we're gonna look to change. And then when as we cross the strait here and we are on the outskirts of Mercy, things are just terrible. And I think most of this traffic is trying to either enter Mersey or the airport or the vast industrial estate next to the airport. Either way, this is getting really bad. And, you know, right adjacent to that, the downtown traffic in Mersey, or rather this connector segment trying to couple Mersey with Route 28 is also looking proper terrible. So I think we're actually going to start out here. Alright, so here's the master plan for this revamp. We're going to try cutting the connection of these two suburban streets to this main arterial, because I think that's just causing traffic hiccups and disrupting the potential flow here. Then we're going to implement some medium-sized roundabouts at each of the intersections where on and off ramps from Route 28 meets with the airport expressway, and we're gonna do the very same on the opposite end over here, where we also see some traffic issues. Then we're going to further complicate this weird loop crossing above the train tracks here by making sure that all the traffic coming from Cooper Street can enter this arterial and Route 28 a little easier, so that they don't have to make this weird right-left turn, which is just cluttering up this segment a lot. So we probably need another elevated segment cutting straight above the train tracks here for this connection to make sense. And then we probably also have to remove one of these Imperial Heights signature buildings from the Imperial Heights neighborhood, because they generate obscene amounts of traffic due to the fact that 720 households are within each of these projects, which is apparently not a bug. It's due to some calculation rule, but it's just too much. I mean, it's just causing a massive issue. And last but certainly not least, we need to find a bridge replacement, preferably with 6 lanes of traffic instead of the 4. Let's dive in. Ah yes, so much for a master plan when I know that anytime I make one change to the traffic situation, there's going to be a ripple effect and new issues are going to spawn elsewhere. So let's just pause the game and have a little look at the current changes. One issue seems to be that Manchester Avenue, which cuts directly through downtown Mersey, turns into a small suburban stretch here in Imperial Heights, and this connection here is causing a host of trouble, because ideally I want to feed traffic onto the main avenues much before they reach these suburban areas where the space is just too tight. So we're gonna give it a try here and see if we can add a little stop piece right there and just remove this connection to ensure that Parkside Avenue can flow a little better. And while we're on the topic of Parkside Avenue, this is definitely where the biggest problem has been spawning, because tons of traffic is trying to feed onto Route 28 and cross the bridge. The current issue is that it has to move into this small roundabout, then into the next roundabout, and then onto this on-ramp. So we're in this constant loop where this traffic has completely dominated this roundabout and no traffic from the Rosewood Highway can actually enter it, which is causing a host of issues as we move closer to downtown. So we definitely need to get rid of this little lane, get rid of this roundabout, and feed traffic directly from this avenue onto the bridge. Oh, and if I sound certain about these changes in any way, if I sound like I'm speaking with confidence, don't be fooled. I'm just I'm just throwing things at the wall currently and hoping something is gonna stick. Anyways, let's see if we can make this connection a little more direct. We'll provide plenty of extra space for an additional lane thereabouts, and grabbing the continuous tool, we'll grab the 1 lane segment here, branching out at 180 preferably, and then just a large swooping motion. Can I make a direct connection? I just about can, but I would prefer to utilize as much space here as possible, because things are certainly gonna become a little complex up here. I think we're actually going to freeform then, and then freeform this connection like this. And I'm going to not make it look all that seamless, because I think we're going to utilize Road Builder on this segment and make a 3+4 asymmetrical highway segment. Alright, so it should be a fairly simple operation. We're just selecting Road Builder, selecting this 3+3 segment, and we're going to say use as template. I think this one is already a custom 6-lane segment. I don't remember if they implemented this in the vanilla game. Either way, ours is going to be a 3+4. That's how I like to name these things anyways. And then let's get an additional lane on this side here. I think that's the correct one, at least. It is. Perfect. Now that we have this segment in place, all saved up, we can select it and just make sure that it's properly aligned. So we're going to upgrade without any snapping, and it will hopefully make sense why I opted for the ramp connection that I did. Actually, it won't. That is gonna look... Oh, there's 2 segments here. Now that makes a little more sense. Now you can kind of see why I made sure that this connection to the 6-lane segment wasn't perfect. Because this connection is perfect, or about as close as it's gonna get. Now, mind you, we can't make a 3+4 bridge segment, not a specific bridge. I mean, we could make an overpass. So there is going to be a short stretch here, like this main segment, that is probably considered a little dangerous because we have two oncoming lane merges within a pretty small span of time, but that's just how it is, I think. Another quick change is to get rid of this little segment here. It made sense when we built it initially. I say that in hopes of nobody taking their time to going way back to the episode where I built this, because it probably didn't make sense back then either. And then I think we're gonna keep these 2 roundabouts, but potentially just downgrade them to some slightly smaller ones, because we're not really getting any extra lanes from having medium-sized roundabouts here. What we will get by downgrading is just a bit more space in the segment between the 2. We'll see if this is actually gonna work or if it's gonna act up. Come on! Right as I'm trying to speed up things and see the impact of these changes, we of course have a bad traffic accident. And it's not like the road condition here is even terrible. It's really not. It's terrible in other parts, mind you, but not right here. I guess the good news is that things have actually cleared up down here by the airport expressway, so this is looking much better, but this is so typical. The accident has been all cleaned up and traffic is now trying to funnel through, so fingers crossed we'll see some actual improvement here. Might sound slightly weird given the current situation on screen, but I think there's some improvements to be seen here. And the natural progression from this is to upgrade the bridge now, because this merge here is causing a lot of trouble. And yeah, things don't really make sense anymore. I also think with the addition of a 6-lane bridge, it would maybe be wise to have an additional on and off ramp right here, although it is very, very steep terrain. We'll try to figure something out. And I think I have the right candidate for the new bridge. It's not a highway bridge though, which is slightly annoying, so it's going to have a slower speed limit and some visible sidewalks, but oh well, I guess we'll manage. Moving to bridges, we're going to filter for bridges and ports bridges, and we've got the new 6-lane suspension bridge, and this one looks mighty fine. But let's find out. It's a pretty large strait that we're crossing, and we should be able to merge in nicely on this side, just like this. We'll need to use manipulation mode to make sure that these nodes look a little nicer, that the transition here isn't as harsh, of course, but it should be, yeah, that's fairly easy. Now on the other side though, it may be a little more problematic because we've got these lanes merging in, but it actually doesn't look too bad right from the get-go, so I'm kind of surprised here. Zooming out, and oh man, that is a nice addition. But it may also prompt us to add a few new skyscrapers, because I'm pretty certain that these pillars here are now the 2 tallest structures in the entire county. I'm gonna test my luck with the manipulation mode here and see if I can make this transition a little more seamless for this extra lane here, because it is it's looking a little rough, a little dangerous, one might even say, with its current setup. So it's now slightly off-angled just to give a bit of extra space for the merge here, but otherwise I don't think there's going to be much of an issue here. It looks more dramatic than it is. It is just one extra lane merging in, but since this highway segment is wider than this avenue segment, basically just looks a little more dramatic. It's a little tight down here, but it seems to work out just all right. I'm actually a little worried about the communications. Oh, yikes. Okay, hopefully there's a node right through the center of the bridge that we can manipulate. That does seem to be the case, so let's just grab this and get that elevated. That is more than enough, and it even looks better, I think, aesthetically. Probably gonna grab the pillar nodes as well and just raise those by a couple of meters as well, just to kind of make sure that we have like a smooth transition. Now that looks fantastic, and plenty of clearance now. That's at least 1 meter. Oh. Having a look at the Archer Bridge situation here in Fort John, I just realized I already had a custom 3+4 version, but this one does have a median in the center, making it even wider. So I guess it's nice we've got a version without the median now. Anyways, let's see if we can get the on and off ramps here in place so that we've got yet another connection to the Fort John road layout. Yeah, so there's no denying that these ramps are very steep, the off-ramp averaging 13% and the on-ramp averaging 12.5%, but they do seem to function. So unless you're very underpowered in terms of horsepower or it's a very slippery day, I think most vehicles should be able to make this run for it. So having yet another look at all the action here, I think it's obvious that this roundabout is starting to create some issues. And we're not seeing all that much traffic from the eastern part of Mercy trying to make its way to Route 28. So if we can just pause, get rid of this, as well as this ramp here and just draw out a direct ramp from this highway piece up to Route 28, I think that is going to alleviate the situation quite a bit. Of course, it is going to create another issue, and that's the fact that if you then want to get onto Route 28 from the eastern part of Mercy, you're gonna be in trouble. Like, you'll have to move down the Airport Express and then make a turn somewhere down here to get onto it. So what we're going to supplement this change with is my first attempt at creating a jog handle intersection way out here. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun to see if that actually works. The first thing we need to do, of course, is to make sure we get this ramp connected directly again. I have no idea whether this is actually going to work. So let's grab a good control point. We'll move down by about 180. I think that should do. And make sure we can connect directly to this segment. Hopefully manage to snake our way below this and above this segment without having to do any adjustment, but we'll check in just a second. It all looks fairly nice, I would say. There is just about enough clearance and plenty of clearance here, so we can probably just lower this a little bit even, although this node will have to be elevated to the height of this node. Yeah, I think it all looks fairly reasonable. So let's get to the fun part, the jog handle attempts. Now, I don't have to preface this by saying I am no traffic expert. You will very well know by now. But I think the main logic behind the jog handle is to avoid having too many left turns at intersections. The reason we are building an at-grade intersection out here is that the population density drops to well, currently it's 0, but basically this stretch of Route 28 has very little traffic as it just has an outside connection. There will be hopefully plenty of suburban sprawl here in the future, but for now it's pretty low traffic. Anyways, back to the jog handle logic. So if I was just to create an ordinary intersection here, so I'm just trying to follow the contour lines ever so slightly, move next to the racetrack and get a good connection going to this highway segment, which will then allow all this traffic to hopefully utilize this connection. The issue is that you will have a lot of left turns here, obviously, which is going to make sure that the signal sequence is going to take a lot of additional time. So if we can instead grab all the traffic that wants to make a left turn at the actual traffic light and just kind of reroute that into its own ramp and then connect it back up so that they have to make, they just have to move straight, that should in theory allow for better traffic flow. Now, how the game is going to actually react to this, I really don't know, but we're gonna try it either way. So we're gonna need a few extra ramps in place. So I'm gonna upgrade this to a 6-lane segment. Then I'm going to add a node right here and right here. So we're gonna continue this for a 6-lane because I also need a dedicated ramp to make the right turn here. Then we are going to downgrade this to a 5-lane segment. Just like this. Then we're going to remove these and now oh wait, I flipped that like this. And now we can branch out with the ramp. We're gonna grab 2 lanes for this. Oh yeah, things are starting to look wonky. Let's just get a few extra slip lanes in place so that this is all fixed up. I guess we need another node right about here. Then we'll upgrade this to a 6-lane segment and we just need a 5-lane segment on this side. Getting rid of that stop. Oh, that is, yeah, okay, that is looking a little tight. Let's just move that 6-lane. Actually, let's make sure we've got it fully customized. This is going to look even more interesting. We'll get this right lane in place and this one, of course. And then we'll make sure that this is a traffic light. it's very important we get the actual traffic rules correctly set up here. So we obviously want to disallow this right turn because you have a dedicated lane for it. We most importantly want to disallow this left turn because that's the entire point of this thing. We also want to disallow, oh, this is going to require the traffic mod to actually work, I think. I cannot force these lanes to move straight. So let's just try and do that instead. Lane connector tool, we click, and I think I am just going to remove all connections and get this set up. So yeah, the whole point is that these two lanes are only for moving straight through this intersection. And that is how the setup looks. Let's hope it works. So we've hit play, and it shouldn't take too long for some traffic coming from the eastern part of town to realize that, yeah, you can't actually get onto Route 28 here. So yeah, at the very least, we can assume that most of the traffic that ends up sitting right by these two lanes here waiting to make a left is traffic that we have effectively removed from the previous mess in here. And I do think this is starting to improve ever so slightly, but once again, it's been, you know, we're late in the evening now, so who knows how it's working in terms of rush hour and things like that. But I do think that is going to be it for this first installment of the traffic fixing of East Haven. As always, I am very much open to feedback and commentary inputs, anything you might think could help the situation here. And of course, we also just need more public transit, because I'm fairly certain that the changes we've made today has made a positive overall improvement. To compare the previous bus line usage, you will see that almost across the board, except for bus line 4, we're seeing more passengers. In fact, the most busy line, which is the X3 line, has pretty much doubled its current passenger count. And I still don't know if we've let the simulation run long enough for this to take full effect. The passenger train situation is surprisingly a little more mixed. I say surprisingly because while most lines have more usage now and a higher passenger count, I don't think the total has actually risen, because the MBTA East Haven line is seeing less use, and so is the airport hopper. Yeah, once again, I don't know if it's fully in effect, or whether the time that we're just looking at these numbers is the correct time to do so, because it obviously jumps up and down throughout the day. One thing that is for certain though is that the expansion by adding 2 additional vehicles to the Bay Road Historic Connector, the tram line in downtown Fort John, that has definitely had a positive impact. We're basically seeing double the passenger amount that we had previously. So I guess there is some incentive to have additional tram lines throughout East Haven. Anyways, we obviously still have plenty of traffic work cut out for us, so that is going to be exciting. But I do think we're in a slightly better spot. We might even be able to squeeze in some new development in the next episode if I dare do that. If you enjoy my content, I would very much appreciate a like and comment on this video for that almighty engagement, and consider subscribing if you haven't already and don't want to miss out on future uploads. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.